So that's how 2015, on the 5th of November, exactly 7 years ago, the first building of T-Hub was launched. Once it came into being, I think it spurred a lot of chatter, it spurred a lot of conversations, it spurred a lot of very interesting discussions among the youngsters, among entrepreneurs, among the startup community that a government is actually driving. Because if you look around the world, very, very rarely do you see governments actually playing the role of enablers. Governments typically come out with policies. Governments typically come out with regulatory compliances. In fact, governments more often than not end up being stiflers. If you look at what's happening in the Web3 and crypto world today, I think you would agree with me. Governments typically end up being the stiflers of innovation in a lot of ways. Because, typically we tend to say, okay, this is not right, that is not right, and, we should not be doing this, there are lines you don't cross, etc., etc. That kind of tends to put a huge, huge roadblock on innovation. But in our case, what we did was we put together a cross-sectional team with the best minds from the government, industry, and academia coming together to build a truly world-class institution. And today when PJN was complimenting me and telling me that, he fondly remembers and recollects days we had met in 2014, I am also equally proud and equally happy that it is shaped up so well and, so beautifully. But I think as MS put it, where is he? Right. As MS put it, I think this is, we've just reached the base camp. I think we have, the entire Mount Everest, the summit to conquer. We have so much to scale, so much to grow. And I don't think I'll have the luxury of calling my state a startup state for very long, because the state has now been around for 8+ years. So I think there comes a time when you have to start growing up also. Can't be called a startup anymore. So therefore, my ambition and our ambition, I think collective ambition of all of us should be to really scale that summit and to make Hyderabad truly, I wouldn't want to call it a Silicon Valley, somewhat of an equivalent of a Silicon Valley. And now I do believe that we also have done some good work, and therefore we are rated by Startup Genome Report among the top 10 cities in the global ecosystem in the affordable talent. We are rated also by the same report among the top 15 in the Asian ecosystem for funding. We are also rated among the top 15 in the global ecosystem for bang for buck category. I think that really matters and deserves a big round of applause. Not just to T-Hub, not just to the T-Hub team here, but to the entire startup ecosystem in Hyderabad. I think we have just started. I think we really have a long way to go, but I think the start has been good. The beginning is, like they say, well begun is half done. The awards ceremony that we just concluded also showcased some of the best and brightest of our startups at various stages of their life cycle in a wide spectrum of sectors, because I was looking at food tech companies, I was also looking at construction tech startups, space tech, people in retail, so robotics. Very, very impressed and personally delighted with the depth of the startup ecosystem, that has been shaping up in Hyderabad and Telangana. But I do believe that this recognition that was just conferred will also further enthuse the 6,000+ startups in Hyderabad and Telangana to actually have larger goals and larger ambitions and to be best in the class. Happy to also share with you that, like MS said, wherever I go, whenever I showcase the T-Hub building, the question that I get asked is, beyond the cool interiors and the very cool, ultra uber exterior, what have you achieved? That's the question I keep getting asked. I think the biggest takeaway for me and for the government has been, while we have spent hundreds of crores, funding this world's largest technology incubator, the biggest takeaway for me and a personal delight for me has been the impact T-Hub has been able to create on the startup ecosystem. It's not just the incubatees here. It's not just the startups who've come here, who've gotten funding, which also is quite good. But I think the impact of T-Hub has not just been felt in Telangana alone, but it has now become sort of a role model to the rest of the country. We have ministers from various states in India coming to us, asking us. Srini was just telling me how our MOU that we signed with Goa government back in 2017, if I remember correctly, or